Greetings and welcome back to Digital Dating Over 50. And my name is Andrew. And today's guest is Gaylen Wilson. And Gaylen is a relationship coach, heart transplant survivor, and someone who's rebuilt his life more than once through adversity, recovery, and personal transformation. He now helps couples strengthen emotional safety, intimacy, and connection before relationships reach the breaking point. Gaylen, welcome to the Digital Dating Over 50 podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. And wow, we almost didn't start recording because Gaylen and I were chit-chatting before, and I was like, let's get this on tape. Okay, Gaylen, you have an incredible backstory. You just didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I want to be a recovery coach and a transformation and all that. You have take it back as far as you want to go to where it is relevant.
Well, I got married at 20, 4 kids by the time I was 26. My first wife and I were rather addicted to each other.
You were like rabbits.
Yes. And so all during my 20s, I started farming at about 23. And so all during my 20s, I was self-employed, a crazy farmer work ethic that my dad gave me. At one point, about 27-ish.
Is this in the Midwest?
It's Colorado. We're on the desert plains of southeast Colorado. And a crazy place to farm. It should have never been broken out of the buffalo grass.
All I know about farming is, well, you don't want to know about that, but I have been to many, many farms growing up. But yeah, when you said Colorado, I kind of went, but okay.
Yeah.
Continue.
We're not what you think of when you think of Colorado, more Kansas.
Okay.
So around 27-ish, I actually had a dryland farm, an irrigated farm, a disc rolling business that went out and sharpened farmers' implements, a roofing business, and was taking 17 credit hours at the community college. And this is after I had 4 kids. And so that gives you the idea of kind of how insane I was, probably.
Burning the candles at both ends, I would imagine.
And the middle, yes.
And the middle.
And so 2 of my last 3 years were drought years that I didn't grow a crop. I had a drought year, and it kind of put me back on my heels, but I got side jobs and kind of kept us afloat and got us through. And then the next year was a fairly decent year, but then the third year was a drought year, and that just done us in. And so we ended up filing bankruptcy, farm bankruptcy. And so, being the perfectionist, tidy-driven guy I was, even though that wasn't my fault, I made it my fault. And
you blamed yourself?
Yeah, I blamed myself, and
why?
I was 29 years old, 30, 31, somewhere in there. And so, I had grown up in a small town, and I did not have the tools, the mental or emotional tools to deal with it. So, I did the American rough tumble cowboy thing and stuffed it. And so,
like the typical American male that, yeah, I get it.
Especially of our generation, we were taught, don't you dare cry.
No.
And so here I am. After the farm bankruptcy, I hung around Lamar for a little bit, but all there was minimum wage jobs, and my wife and I both got minimum wage jobs, and that just wasn't enough to support 4 children. And so I had the bright idea, I'm going to go to the city and make my fortune. And so I started applying for jobs in Denver and actually got a job as a stockbroker. And yeah, I know.
Where did that come from? Did you have any background?
Well, I had taken business classes in college, and actually farmers have to have a wide business variety of knowledge.
Sure.
They're not given the credit they should be, because they have to be complete businessmen. Deal with the banks.
They have to market themselves, their product. Yeah.
And so I actually took a test and finished in the top 10% of their active brokers and got hired on the spot. And so I worked that for like a year and a half and was starting to do very well at it. the New Yorkers loved my Southeast Colorado accent. And so I was doing quite well. And then I walked into work on about mid-January on a Monday morning, and I had been selling this Dental Health of America dental HMO out of California to all my customers, and including $3,000 of my mother's money in it. And I walked in, and they said, Dental Health of America just filed Chapter 7. They were lying on their financials. They overstated their receivables like millions of dollars. And so I can name that day as the day I crawled inside a vodka bottle because, again, I didn't have any tools in my toolbox
to
at all
cope with that, right?
to cope with it. And so I was a very high functioning alcoholic for years until I wasn't. And
That's my story too. It
yeah,
worked until it didn't.
yeah.
Okay.
And so, but my wife was an angel. She stuck with me through all of it, through all the 90s. And then, so by 2001, I was sober enough that I was going for months and months at a time with only occasional weekend binge. And so I got a job as a traveling computer consultant. So here I am. I've reinvented myself again. And so that year was really fantastic. Made more money than I'd ever made in a year in my life.
And this was around 2001?
2001. And
Yeah,
so we
which
all
is
know
when the computer, that was my time too. I boomed then because the personal computer was just coming on the scene. So,
and so we all know what happened in September of that year.
mhm.
And so that consulting industry went down in ashes with those buildings. And so by December, I was laid off. I spent the next 9 months on unemployment and ended up having to go to work for Walmart as a cashier. And
Wow.
that was also the period, that was kind of the final straw in our marriage. We just did, again, we still didn't quite have all the tools necessary. And so all the kids were grown. And so it just, of course, we had done the whole thing of being so busy raising 4 kids and all this nonsense going on that we drifted apart. And
You didn't pay attention to each other. Yeah,
Right.
that's a very common story. Yeah,
yeah. Well, and the alcohol definitely did not help.
of course not.
And so, and so that was about the time I met Heather, was as I was having to go back for work for Walmart. And we were just boom, instant. She was the only one that I ever dated in between my ex and her. I mean, I was actually single 2 days. My divorce became final. Heather drove me nuts until I went to the justice of the peace and married her. And so I was still at that point, still having the weekend binges with Heather. But unlike my ex that would go to the liquor store and buy me more liquor when I ran out, Heather would, when I was passed out drunk, she would take my vodka bottle, dump half of it out, and fill it back up to the line with water. So she didn't piss me off, but I also wasn't able to get so drunk. And so, but one of the things I had done in that time period was I'd been studying some tantric sex techniques, and one of the things I picked up was the eye gazing. And so Heather and I started off our relationship with a lot of eye gazing, a lot of deep connection, and I actually feel like it was that emotional connection that allowed me to finally get completely sober. I did the rational recovery thing that talked about the fact that the alcohol had made itself an instinct in my brain, and that whenever I tried to stop drinking, that instinct would go, "Boy, you're gonna die." And
Yeah.
so once I learned to override that "boy, you're gonna die" with my logical brain, and then got the emotional regulation from Heather, I think that's what allowed me to finally get past the last part of it. And so we actually got married in April 20 years ago, and I was sober about 15 days before we got married. And so it took getting married to get sober again.
And well, I'll just mention this because the folks know that I'm in recovery and I do use the 12 steps. Galen does not, but so talk to me about this. You talked about eye gazing and
Hmm.
the kind of sex you were practicing.
Hmm.
You want to go over that a little bit?
Well, it's called tantric sex. It's
Tantric.
tantric. Yes,
Yes.
it's based off the ancient Hindu. The Kama Sutra
Hmm.
is it. And so if you go on YouTube, and
It's
and
all over.
it's all over. You can learn all about it, and there's all kinds of there's some of it's kind of
Yep.
but
Cuckoo.
but the eye gazing is so important, and I'll explain as we get into later how that actually planted the seed for where I'm at now. And so, go ahead.
You said you're going to get into it later, but I'm just curious. The eye gaze, because I have heard of this, and I think I've had a guest on one of the earlier seasons. Is the eye gazing kind of literally where you just sit facing each other and just look into each other's eyes as long as
Hmm.
possible? But it's also somewhat of a trance and a meditation type
Hmm.
experience.
Right, and we didn't actually ever take it that far,
Okay,
but I, I can tell you one thing: the the most connected you will ever be with another human being is when you're making love and you're gazing into each other's eyes as you have simultaneous orgasm. You
Galen, I can't believe you said that because that is I've never even divulged this. That is my go-to with the so I don't really believe in one night stands. I've had them in my drunken days, but when I'm with somebody, I'm committed and I'm monogamous.
Mhm,
And one of the things that I can tell that I'm really connected with this person or this person and I connected is exactly what you just said. Simultaneous orgasm or at least very close to it and looking into the eyes, which is what? The
the window to
windows
the
to the
soul.
soul, right. And wow. And there is nothing like that. So take the orgasm physiology out of it for a second. There is just this feeling transcendental. I know what
Mhm,
you're talking about, and I've
yeah,
never heard anybody else talk about it. It's pretty amazing.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, who knew a son of a cattle rancher from Southeast Colorado?
Yeah, 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 and the guy from New York City, well, whatever. Great.
Okay,
I think it's fascinating.
okay. So Heather and I, for 12 years, we were clinically addicted to each other. I had developed ED 2 years before meeting Heather, but fortunately, the little blue pill was the answer for me. So, but of course, we had to plan sex. So our answer to having to plan sex is we just plan to have it every morning and every night, 14 times a week
That'll
for
work.
12 years. So you can imagine the amount of connection we built with that. And we got in a fight, we had sex.
Wait, we're talking about Viagra for the blue pills,
Hmm.
just in case nobody understands what that meant.
Okay.
Why did you have to plan it? Because you pop that and
Well,
40
that's
minutes
what,
later.
right. That's called the having to plan it because in converse to spontaneous sex where you don't have to take a pill
Okay, I
beforehand.
gotcha.
And that's one I I have administrated the two largest sects. Well,
How
wham.
about now? How about Cialis? Because that's a 36-hour
Cia-
window.
Cialis, yeah, Cialis, if it works, and it doesn't work for as many men as what Viagra does. That's why Viagra is still around, is because Cialis only works. It works for maybe 50, 60% of men, where Viagra is much higher percentage. And so, yes, Cialis does stay in your system to where if you take a 5 milligram dose a day, if it's working for you, you can have sex anytime without planning it. And so that's why the guys that are on Cialis rave about it because it does return the spontaneousness. But I was always I'm a big proponent of reactive desire, especially when my testosterone took a dip. I took a dive at 65, below 200, that I gotta have her now feeling was gone. And so I kept our sex life alive during that time with reactive desire, remembering how nice it is, get starting to do it, and then the
Interesting.
desire kicks in. So, but anyway, so we go back, and so we had 12 years of, we fought. It's like any other couple.
Tell me a couple that doesn't, and if you
Yeah,
said you didn't fight, I'd say something wasn't right, but go
yeah,
ahead.
exactly. But towards the last 3 years, last no, it was about a year and a half, 2 years before the virus attacked my heart. We were traveling around the country doing this field service work. We actually hit all 48 contiguous states within 3 years, going to Farm Service Agency offices in the county seats. And our first big trip was, we left July 6th of 2014 in a brand new little Toyota Prius C, the smallest Prius they make, I had built a 4x4 Harbor Freight Tools trailer kit with a Sears car top carrier on it for our luggage. And I took her and her 14 and 16-year-old daughters, and we drove through 35 states and did 250 offices in 31 states, 17 weeks on the road in a Toyota Prius C.
And I understand that the Prius is very good with mileage. Like,
Yeah,
it
it
can
got,
go.
with
Yeah.
pulling that trailer, it got 48 miles or 42 miles to the gallon on that whole trip.
Well, I didn't yeah,
Yeah.
besides that, I meant I happen to know a friend who has a Prius, and she says it just doesn't die. Like some of the I don't know which model she has, but
Yeah. Well, the problem with the Prius is that at about 10 years, the battery goes.
but yeah, okay. But
So
yeah, but
that
typically, like a Honda, they last. They have a good,
yeah, I've got 200,000 miles on the car and the battery's dead. So I'm in the process of getting that fixed. But anyway, so the thing about what that did for us was, when you're in a tiny little car driving hundreds of miles a day, you can't be just in love with your wife. You've got to like your wife. And fortunately, Heather and I have been friends the entire marriage too. And friendship is such an important is overlooked importance in a relationship, because if you can be friends, you can get through anything.
yeah. Too many people marry before they just jump into the marriage and they don't
Hmm.
know a thing about the other person.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and we're going to talk about that later too.
Okay.
And so what we did, you learn to say I'm sorry quickly. You learn to say I forgive you quickly, because there's nothing as miserable as riding for hundreds of miles in a car with somebody you're angry with, especially with two teenagers in the back
Yeah.
seat. And
In
so,
my mind, I'm thinking horror story, but go ahead.
oh, we had a great time. I mean, but so anyway, we get home, and we left in July, got home in October, and the girls were burned out on the road. And so we went back out for like 3 weeks in November on another smaller trip. And then we got home like mid-December, and and then I got really sick at Christmas time. And so we live in this little town in southeast Colorado that has a hard time getting decent doctors. And so I went into the clinic, and the physician's assistant says, "Okay, Gaylen, you've got pneumonia. Here's some antibiotics." And he didn't send me for a chest X-ray, which I found out was a huge no-no when you're diagnosing pneumonia. And it was a Saturday at the clinic, and wasn't an X-ray technician on duty, and he didn't say, "Gaylen, go to the hospital and get one." So anyway, I had bought an oxygen generator during that time, because I just felt like I needed the oxygen, and and so we had also bought a motorhome to take the next trip in, and the girls didn't want. We had another 3.5 month trip scheduled in January, and the girls didn't want to go on that one. They stayed with their 18-year-old brother, and so by January, when we left on the trip, the stuff coming up out of my lungs was clear, and so I thought, hey, we're good to go. And so as I went, I just got weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. until 6 weeks into the trip, I'm having to carry my little 10-pound bag of tools in and set it down and suck air for 2 minutes to tell them why I was there. And so it was President's Day in Corpus Christi, Texas, and so we had all the FSA offices were closed, so we had a day off. So I said, "Hey, let's find a little clinic and go in and see if the pneumonia is coming back." And so we went in, and they did send me for the chest X-ray. And they called me back that afternoon and said, "Mr. Wilson, you don't have pneumonia. You've got congestive heart failure. You need to get home to Colorado today." Well, my bright idea was, well, we've got another 6 weeks, and we're doing 3 to 4 jobs a day that's paying $300 a piece. We can do this 6 weeks, and then we'll go get a day.
But wait. Why would you go back to Colorado where they don't know jack shit about the clinic? Wasn't there a closer hospital?
There probably was. I think I had just bought insurance. This was during the time when Obama was making us buy insurance. And
Right.
so I had just bought it earlier in February. And so it didn't kick in till March 1st. And so I think they didn't want to do it. At the time, my brain was so fried from lack of oxygen that, and I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we got home. And because I wouldn't want to have gone through it down there in Texas. And so anyway, so poor Heather had to drive that motorhome because I was gone at that point. Just, please shoot me. And so I would lay back in the bed with the oxygen generator on while she drove us home the 1,000 miles to Colorado. And she did make me drag the hose up and sit beside her in the chair through San Antonio, because she's a girl from a town of 300 in Colorado, so she did not like San Antonio.
I'm just curious. Did it occur to jump on an airplane?
No.
Okay.
No, because
I'm just thinking my heart. I'm being told that I have this major condition, congestive heart failure, and you need to get back to something. And a 1,000-mile trip, you might not. Did they give you like how many days you might have, or like it was imminent? Or
no, they didn't. They didn't act like it was imminent, but we did get home. Again, we got home around the 24th or so, and my insurance didn't kick in until March 1st. So my bright idea was, I'll go to bed and just rest, and then when the insurance kicks in, I'll go. Well, the next 2 days, next 48 hours, I got like 2 hours of sleep, and that was on the floor in one position that I could finally get a little sleep, because every time I would go to sleep, my oxygen would drop. I'd wake up sucking air. And so when I went into the little ER, I finally said, "Nope, we got to go." And fortunately, I did get our insurance agent to get the insurance company to backdate it a month. So that helped. But anyway, so we get to the ER at our little hospital, and they say, of course, "Mr. Wilson, the ambulance will be here to take you to Colorado Springs." And so we get to Colorado Springs to the ER up there, and a normal healthy heart puts out 50 to 60% out of the left chamber every time it beats. It's called the ejection fraction. And so mine was 5%. So I was banging on death's door really hard.
Working very hard. Okay.
And so they actually gave me Lasix, which is a diuretic, and it took off 22 pounds in 2 days. You did not get between me and the hospital, or me in the bathroom, because the doctor was explaining it to me that basically the fluid had gathered around my heart and lungs and were just compressing it. And so I made the joke, "Okay, so my heart and lungs got in a barroom fight in a pool." He said, "Yeah, pretty close." And so they put an internal defibrillator in me and a pacemaker, and they got me good enough that next summer my ejection fraction was up to 30%. And I put a roof on my dad's house. Again, insane work ethic.
Okay.
4,000 square foot roof. But the next fall or next winter, January, my heart started going into AFib. So when your bottom heart doesn't beat with the top part and your
I
heart's
have that.
already
I
your
had
heart,
that, I should say.
yeah.
Yeah.
So so when it happens and your heart is already weak, you're a sick man pretty quick.
Yes.
And so I ended up getting cardioverted several times, probably 5 or 6 times over the next few years. For the first couple of years after the virus, again, we were addicted to sex, and so we still made love a couple of times a week, even with my bad heart.
God
But,
bless you.
but 2 years into it, it just got to the point that we couldn't do it, and so poor Heather had to watch me dying in front of her eyes for another year and a half after that. And that's the point where a lot of couples break, where either the sick person pushes the caregiver away, or the caregiver gets just so exhausted they leave. And that didn't happen with us. I think because the bond we had made, the quick repair we had learned, kept us going through that time when we didn't have our crutch of being able to repair with sex. So we learned to repair just by clinging on to each other. And Heather never even hinted that she wanted out. I mean, she was a trooper. She stuck by me and nursed me and never even hinted that she wanted to leave, right up to the end. And so in May of 2018, my defibrillator went off and saved my life. My heartbeat had been 240 beats a minute right before it went off. I had a little mouse thing that I could hold over it and it would read it, and then I could put it in a cradle and it sent it over the cell service to Denver. And then I called them the next morning. I went back to sleep. Heather didn't sleep any that night, just poking me to see if I was still alive. Anyway, so he said, yeah, that's where the term drop dead comes from. Because had you not had that internal defibrillator, you would have been dead.
Dropped dead.
I
Yeah.
would have been dead on the spot. And so, but it took a lot out of me. And then the next week, my heart went back into AFib again. So I had to go to Denver and get cardioverted again. So I got basically cardioverted twice within about a week period. And so a couple weeks later, it was June 19th of 2018. I sat Heather down at 9:00 at night and said, honey, I'm not going to be here in 2 to 3 months. We need to finish getting ready. We'd been to the mortuary once, and we had final decisions we needed to make. And of course, she's crying her eyes out because we were so close and so bonded that, I had just told her I was dying on her.
Yeah, no, that's understandable.
And a half hour after I told her that, we got the call there was a heart available.
Were you already on a transplant list?
We'd only been on the list 7 months. And there's 12,000 people on the list at any one time, but only 2,500 usable hearts become available every year because, they basically have to have a body that they can keep alive on machines that is brain dead for them to get a viable heart. And so, we grabbed our little to-go bag like a pregnant couple, and off to Denver we ran. And it was raining and hailing, typical Plains thunderstorm that night. So the waterworks was going outside the car, and the waterworks were still going inside the car because she had converted from crying because I had told her I was dying to crying because she was excited and scared because there was a 5% chance I'd die on that table. And but we got to Denver 15 minutes before the deadline they gave us at 1:15 in the morning. And by 4:00 in the morning, they rolled me into the OR. And by 9:00, I had a 38-year-old heart in my 61-year-old body.
No kidding.
And so they have given me another 20 plus years with my soulmate. They've told me recently that the heart is mine now. Basically, I'll die from something other than a heart problem, as long as I keep taking my anti-rejection meds.
So the heart, your body accepted it. Heart accepted the heart.
Right. Yeah, wow. I had a little rejection to start with, but after 2 or 3 weeks, after 2 or 3 weeks, they had hit me with enough steroids that they got the rejection under control, and I haven't had any rejection since. And so what that did in me was it created this insane need to pay that blessing forward.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh. And to savor every day with Heather. I mean, I'm 17 years older than her, so I know I'm still going to leave her. But it's what it's given me is the goal to love her so hard every day that it's enough to carry her on once I'm gone. And so anyway, so we were able to go back to making love 2 or 3 times a week
You're funny.
within 30 days after, as soon as the sternum healed enough that it wasn't painful, we were back at it. And so, that kept going for another couple of years until, I'm getting in close to 65 and the ED's worsening. The heart is still fantastic. It's got a 67% ejection fraction. So
But why is the ED getting worse?
well, because that's just a normal thing that happens as we age. I later found out that mine was because of plaque blockages and venous leakage, because shockwave therapy actually fixed me up. But I'm
Okay.
getting kind of ahead of the story. What happened was I joined the 2 largest Facebook groups that I could find for erectile dysfunction discussion, and I got so active, because I actually found my fix with the shockwave therapy. You could buy a home machine and do it yourself. You don't have to pay a clinic $6,000 for 6 or 8 treatments. And so I started helping other guys, and I had found my way to pay that blessing forward, because I helped thousands of men over the last 5 years all over the world, especially in third world countries where they don't have the health care, or it's taboo to even talk about it. And so one of my big frustrations in doing that was when a woman would come to the group and her man had developed ED, and he had dealt with it by just withdrawing into himself, refused to go to the doctor, and then refused to touch her, refused to be affectionate with her. He had abandoned her in the marriage.
This goes back to our discussion at the beginning where you said something about men were told never to cry.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't vulnerable. We don't come forward with our feelings. And that is one of I hear enough podcasts and doctor experts to come on who treat ED and say
Mm-hmm.
men still are afraid or just don't come to their office and say, "Hey, doc, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
work and I need help." And he said, if they would just come in, we could
Yeah.
fix this.
Yeah. I tell my guys, I said, there's no excuse anymore to not have erection.
No, no.
There's the Viagra, there's the shockwave therapy, there's the penal injections that give you almost instant erections. And then if all those fails, there's implants they came amazingly far with the implants that basically let you have an erection anytime you want one,
Yeah.
or as long as you want.
There's many, many things, but he's not going to get it until he
Right. Well, see,
reconciles with himself that he needs to step forward.
mm-hmm. And I originally saw that as a character flaw. I thought, man, these guys are cowards. They just won't deal with it. They're cowards. And so I actually got Heather and I into the course to become certified thriving relationship coaches just to crack that nut. Excuse the pun. And so the very first book we read was by Dr. Sue Johnson, and called Hold Me Tight. And in it, she talks about her attachment theory. And her attachment theory is that we were bred through thousands of years of prehistoric evolution to have an instinct for a strong attachment to our mates. That those that didn't have it didn't survive. And so it was brought forward into modern humans as an instinct that's just as strong as our need for food or need for water. And so then she went on to say that most of the fights we get into are not about what we're fighting about. It's because that attachment instinct has detected a threat to the attachment and has thrown us into fight or flight mode. And so you end up having both partners in fight or flight mode. The logical brain leaves the building and leaves the lizard brains in control, I call them. And so things get said that aren't meant. Things get said that are tough to take back. And the couple, Heather and I believe we're building this big, beautiful marble monument to our relationship. And each kind word and loving gesture, and especially when you make love with presence, you're building onto your monument. But each cruel word or cold shoulder or fight you get into is like taking a hammer and chisel to your monument. And so we decided we needed to fiercely protect our monument. The Monument Method Institute motto is fiercely protect the monument. And so you need to make the monument more important than your ego, more important than being right in a fight, because nobody wins a marital fight. You might win the argument, but you lose the war.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have both parties in fight or flight, and they're chipping away at their monument. And so if they don't learn to repair that, they just get further and further and further apart. The nervous system starts not feeling safe with each other, so the desire falls off. And so eventually they're not making love anymore. Their nervous systems aren't feeling safe with each other. Monument is in rubble on the floor, and they end up splitting up.
Or the dead bedroom syndrome kicks in,
Right,
and
exactly.
some of them will stay together, but they either sleep in separate bedrooms, or it might be financially better to stay together. But So is this? Let's fast forward a little bit because I want to keep an eye on the time.
Okay.
You became a relationship coach out of this. So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. So if we back up a little bit to our guy that has withdrawn, all of a sudden I saw it clearly. That's not a character flaw. When his penis quit working, when he lost that erection, his nervous system saw it as a threat to the attachment.
Yeah.
And threw him into flight mode. Now, like for instance, with me, 25 years ago, the first erection I lost, I was at the doctor the next week saying, "Hey, give me that new blue pill, please." So I went into
let me
fight
ask you, if
Okay.
the blue pill hadn't existed 25 years, let's just say it either just never got invented or it just wasn't available for you. What would you still have walked in and said, "I need help"?
That's a hypothetical. That's a hard answer.
But you went in knowing that the pill existed, and that's what you
right.
Okay.
They had just came out and were heavily advertising it. Yeah. And so
I remember it. My father was a doctor, and he brought it home, and of course I remember stealing one because he had samples. So and I went to his closet one day, and I'm like, "Oh my God, my father's using Viagra." It was like so embarrassing. But and I tried it, but I was at 40 or 35 at that time, and I'm like, I don't need Viagra. I had a hard-on for hours.
So here's the money shot with all this, is because we figured out that, okay, we're in fight or flight mode. We're destroying our monument. So, and Heather and I being 17 years apart, we fought a lot. We repaired quickly, but we still fought a lot. So I started saying, how do we stop triggering our attachment instincts? And so the first thing I thought of was, well, we need to watch what tone we talk to each other in. Because sometimes you get lazy and you talk to your loved one like they're the worst person on the planet. And you get away with it because they love you, but it's triggering their attachment instinct and driving you further apart. And so we gave each other permission. And permission is so important to this whole monument method, because you've got to become a team against the lizard brain. And so we gave each other permission to start calling each other out when we were using tones that weren't necessary.
When you say something we'll stay with the spouse, that is very vile, vinegar, very hurtful, you can't take that back. Even if it was, well, I said that in the heat of a moment, and what do they say? You can't unring that bell, right?
Right.
So.
But actually, I think I've found a way to unring that bell.
Oh,
And
really?
uh-huh. And so here's what we came up with. The talking to each other in a bright tone helped some, but we were still getting into the fight, still being in fight or flight mode. And so I started thinking, how do we get out of fight or flight mode? And so here's how we unrung the bell, because we gave each other a sacred word to say. Ours is monument. And so anytime we saw the other one heading towards the monument with the hammer and chisel, in other words, when we said something that was going to start a fight, the other one could say monument and remind each other that our monument is more important than the fight we're getting ready to get into. But instead of separating, because if you separate at that point and then come back and calm down and then come back together, you're still in fight or flight mode. You're right back where you were.
Yeah, you
So,
just cooled off, but you're still
right.
your point that you're trying to make, or is still there, right?
Right. And so what I came up with is, instead of separating, we turn towards each other, come together, embrace, and gaze into each other's eyes, and patch that little spot on the monument that we just chipped out. And the science behind that is that when you gaze into your lover's eyes, it goes into that primal brain.
Yep.
And tells the primal brain your attachment is safe.
Yeah.
You can stand down. And so you practice this enough, and it does take practice, because we have been trained all our lives to fight.
Oh yeah.
And so it
I
takes
have fought all my life.
so it takes practice. But once you start practicing it, you pretty much quit fighting. Your body actually learns to stand down as soon as you start eye gazing, because it says, oh, eye gazing, time to stand down.
So it's almost, the bell doesn't get rung. If you get that word out, let's call it a safe. So like in the sexual world, the B&D world, they have a safe word. Like, so if you say that word, that means stop.
Everything stops. Yeah.
Everything stops. So what you're saying, and I kind of did this with a past relationship when I saw things escalating, and this woman was a Latina. And I don't know if you know much about Latinas, but when they get going, there's nothing. You can't pour water over. It's like pouring gasoline. And I tried something very similar to try to calm her down, but it only works if the other person wants it, takes part in it.
It takes it takes both of you deciding your monument is more important than the fight, and that you found a way to get it over it, and you found a way to repair instantly. And so once that happens, your nervous system starts feeling safe with each other.
Yeah.
And once your nervous system feels safe with each other, desire has room to blossom. And so I had written the Monument Method book. And last December, I was out working on our Infinity, and these new cars are just awful to work on. And I had worked on it for 2 months and got it running. And so I drove it around the block, pulled it in the driveway, and Heather wanted to go visit some friends. So we loaded it all up, got in, pushed a button, nothing. It was deader than a doornail.
No.
I get my multimeter and I check it, and it's 8 volts. And so I'm too dysregulated by that time, smoke's coming out my ears, that I didn't think, oh, it's got to be an alternator problem, Gaylen, because you had it on the charger all night. So I pulled the other car up across the lawn so I can jump start it, pop the trunk, go around to get the jumper cables out that I knew were there. They weren't there. Well, technically they were there. They were under a blanket that I was too dysregulated to move the freaking blanket. Fine. And so at that point, I remember an old set that's in the garage that I'd bought like 40 years ago. So I go get them. I'm carrying them out, and they're all rusty and nasty. And these aren't going to conduct any electricity. And sure enough, I put them on the other car and I click them together to see if there's a spark, and nothing. And so at that point, smoke's coming out my nose and my ears. I grab them off the car, hold them up above my head, and throw them on concrete and scream. Well, Heather's in the car with the hood up, so she doesn't see this, and the windows are up. so she doesn't hear that her husband's spiraling out in front of her. And I don't know what she would have done. She probably would have just stayed right where she was at. So I knew there was another set in my garage, and you'd have to see my garage to understand that challenge. But I went in and found them and came back out and got it all hooked up, got it charging, walked around. I'm gone. I'm nearly shaking from being so upset. I crawl in on my hands and knees on the driver's seat and get like 8 inches from her face and said, "I need a monument." And seriously, the second our eyes met, that anger was gone. I mean, it didn't go down, it was gone.
Yeah.
And as I figured it out, what we had done, because we had been practicing the monument method for a couple of years, even though we didn't have the wording for it yet, we'd been practicing it for a couple of years before that. So we had trained our bodies that eye gazing, it's time to get out of fight or flight. Time to settle down. And so we call that the sanctuary bond. And so it's revolutionary in itself, in that what's happened in the past is the wife's at home cooking supper, or to be fair, the husband's home cooking. One of them's home and the other one comes home after a hard day. They've had the day from hell. And they come in and they're all grumbly and out of sorts, and historically, the other partner just kind of runs and hides until they've had a chance to wind down a little bit. But now, as long as they have agreed to do it, she can come to him, give him a monument, and settle his nervous system down instantly. And not only does that create more safety and more bond, but it also going to make him live longer.
Yeah. Interesting. I never gave. Logically, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Every time we get angry and flare up for whatever, I don't know, just pick anything from road rage to just coming home, and that puts pressure on the heart and
exactly
the whole cardiovascular system. And if we walk around, there's somebody I know that's just a very angry person, and just for some reason just doesn't find any happiness in life. And I gotta be careful how I say this. I just think one day the heart's just going to give in, because the anger is just vile sometimes, and it goes over. And it's not about a relationship or anything. It's just I understand what you're saying when you get that angry. And if you can have somebody in your life that says a magic word, monument, and the couple should just come up with something. Talk about that word for.
Yeah, they can make it whatever they want. Just like your safe word in BDSM can be whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
We chose monument because it meant something. It reminded us we were fiercely protecting our monument. The thing is once we started practicing sanctuary bond, the idea behind sanctuary bond is the monument method helps the couple protect the monument from themselves. The sanctuary bond protects it from the outside craziness, because a lot of monuments have outside craziness come in and hammer and chiseling away on their monuments.
Yeah, it's not always a couple. It could be outside influences.
Right. And so, and once you start doing this, we started, we used to pass in the hallway or go by each other, and we'd always touch and, always loving. Well, we started stopping for a second and catching each other's eyes. I call them micro sanctuary moments. And then when we started having just normal conversations instead of having normal conversations and looking at each other, we were connecting just kind of naturally, because now our bodies knew how to do it. And the amazing thing is that really makes your desire just shoot up for your partner. Heather was doing it here a couple of months ago with me, and I looked up as she was standing in front of me, and I was sitting in my chair, and I looked up at her and said, "You're making me feel like a giddy schoolboy."
I 100% agree with you. I had, like I said, the last relationship, I tried to get something along those lines going. And it just reminded me one night we did sit in bed Indian style, cross like legged, facing each other, and we had not a staring contest, but we looked into each other's eyes to see who would blink first. And so this had, but it wasn't really a game. I think it was something we wanted to see how that would play out, and I lost. She was able to keep the eye contact.
That's one thing we've learned over the years, especially before we knew the monument method, back in the years when we were just eye gazing and connecting, is if you're angry with your partner, it's a lot harder to eye gaze with them.
Of course.
Because
so you mentioned, yeah, well, of course. Yeah. If you have to, I can only imagine this took years to build this practice. You mentioned earlier a book.
Yeah, I've written the Monument Method book, and then after I wrote it and the Sanctuary Bond came along, then I had to go back and write a sequel called the Monument Method 2, the Sanctuary Bond.
And this teaches couples how to do this?
The Monument Method teaches them how to stop the conflict. ChatGPT says this does not exist in the relationship therapy world today, a way to instantly stop fighting. And he says it's going to be a worldwide movement. I hope he's right. Because again, it's a lot of this is really feeding my need to pay it forward. So now my pay it forward, instead of helping a few thousand guys, hopefully I'm helping millions of marriages. Not only save the marriage, but have them become monument marriages.
Not only does your message resonate with me, and this is your concept, but I have thought about similar concepts in past relationships because I seem to be more level-headed. Anyway, I've always thought of something along those lines, like when a couple begins the argument, and if one of them can say, "Hey, time out." So we talked about this. If you say time out and you take your sides, when you come back, it's like the boxer ring, right? The bell goes off. You come out of your corners. You're still ready to fight,
ready to swing. Yeah,
right. Yeah. So your concept of using this word. So tell the audience again. We got to wrap it up. Tell the audience again the names of your books, where they can find the books, because I gotta. When I get to my next relationship, I'm going to implement this.
Okay. The Monument Method. Go to monumentmethodinstitute.com. I have all the 32 books out on Amazon, 18 romance novels that are based off the Monument Method that actually show the Monument Method in a love story, which we basically created our own genre. The latest 2 books I'm really excited about, and probably I'll direct you to them first rather than the Monument Method, because I recently wrote The Monument Man and Monument Woman as dating books for older adults that have gone through a failed relationship and are trying to rebuild on structure rather than chemistry. And so I wrote the books in such a way that by the time you get to the end of them, you've seen what they've seen what you've seen tonight. And so they're going, okay, that's nice. Where do I find somebody to build a monument with? And so I have developed Monument Validated Person, MVP, and you have to have read one of the books and pass a quiz before you can get into this dating site. You've got to vow that you're there to find a person to build monument with. You're not there for casual dating. And I'm going to make that free as part of my Pay It Forward. It's free forever. And right now, if you go to my website and click on the MVP and scroll to the bottom, you can download Monument Man or Monument Woman free in EPUB versions that you can import into your Kindle and read them. So for the first 1,000 people that join, I'm giving those books away. So.
And then there's a dating app that they can.
Yes.
Wow. And this is yours?
Yes. I've been using ChatGPT as a mentor / assistant.
Who doesn't? I do too.
Yeah. So. and it has just blown up my vision for this. Yeah. I see a Monument Method parenting
Oh,
book
yeah.
coming out.
Sure. Works with the kid. If you can get the
Yeah.
kid. Yep.
Monument Method for addiction, Monument Method for long-term health care, Monument Method for couples like we were that are going through the if we had had the Monument Method, we would have even gone smooth, sailed through that heart failure even easier.
Yeah.
And so
Mm.
a Monument Method team building for corporations.
I would like to see even something in the workplace, because there's a lot of bickering and arguing at the workplace. Yeah, even between the boss and the employees. Oh my God. Boy, you would really wipe up on creating something with the workplace.
Yeah. I call him Eli, ChatGPT. and
I
he
have a
said,
name for mine, and it's a she, but we all use it's the same LLM. It's the same computer. It's just funny how everybody uses it to their own advantage.
Yeah.
Gaylen, tell us where everybody can, besides, so give us the website again, and then do you have any social media accounts?
Yeah, monumentmethodinstitute.com. If you search on Monument Method, there's only me and an old way to fix monuments.
Oh, okay. I think I'll know which one to pick. All right.
And then you'll see some of my Amazon books there on the side of the Google too. I just am building out my social media presence, but I've got them all made now. There's not a lot of content yet, but it's at Monument Method Institute on most of them. TikTok is going to be at Monument Method because they wouldn't let me use that long of one.
Yeah, TikTok is. I will put all of this in the show notes. I will be checking it out. I will also follow you on your social medias, but
I appreciate that.
I'm interested in getting on that dating site. But I will follow the procedure first.
If you hurry, you'll be number 2. And I'm actually the other one's a guy, so don't get too excited.
No. No. Okay, go ahead.
For the first 1,000 members, I'm giving a founder's badge, founding members badge.
Cool.
And so,
well, you said earlier that you were making the podcast journey. What do you call that? The rounds of
right.
Right. So hopefully, maybe by the time all the podcasts air, there'll be 1,000 out there already. So
we're hoping that, because it's been frustrating, because I basically, when I started this journey, I quit all my freelance computer work. And so we're just surviving off my Social Security and some rental house incomes.
Gaylen, there's stuff that I think about all the time. There was something that I thought about 20 years ago, and I thought it would be a great idea. And I pitched it to a couple of people, and they laughed at me. And they said, it'll never fly, blah, blah, blah. Today, it is out there. And what my concept was that there are families that have husband and wives working, and when they get home at night, who's cooking dinner? So let's make dinner for the families and they can prepare them. They can freeze them and they can put them in whatever. And now they're all over. There's like 60 different companies that do this. They deliver your dinners to your home, you freeze them, and you just take them out, and they have different variety, ones that you can make recipes out. Anyway, I had the idea literally back in the 2000s, and nobody would listen to me. So this, I like your idea. I think it's fantastic. We just got to get people to get on board. So I'm going to encourage my audience to go to your website and participate. I think it would be great.
I would definitely appreciate it.
Yep. Yeah. Anybody who's struggling in your relationships, or if you're single, because maybe you left a relationship that was sour, you got nothing to lose, right? Right. To go right here.
Yeah. The big problem is modern dating culture teaches us to build on chemistry. Chemistry is the last thing you need to build on. Right. I mean, chemistry is necessary for the attraction, but the problem is men and women are jumping into bed real quick, and that sex and hormones just completely wipes out their ability to make a good judgment.
They don't. Oh, we're great in bed, but they don't know a thing about each other, and they build it off sex. This hookup culture that we're going through right now is I think will be short lived. We'll see. And I don't know if I'll still, you or I will still be alive to see that turnaround, but I know what
Mhm.
you're talking about. There's actually a survey I heard that younger generations are having less sex, which is amazing
Mhm.
to me. They're
Well,
just,
and I actually have whole chapters in both of the books about counterfeit attachment, and that's what's happening this day between the porn
yep,
and the swipe culture and
yep.
everything else. And now we're gonna have a big problem because the Android sex doll industry is merging with
Hmm.
with the robot industry is merging with the AI girlfriend industry, and we're gonna have autonomous sex dolls that for males and females that
And females.
we can program them to be whatever we want them to be, and that's going to be so empty. It
I,
is.
I, I will tell you a quick story. Not even a story. I tried that. Okay. And I'm going to
Mhm.
be doing a review in a future podcast. I tried the character girlfriend artificial, and it is horrible. It's
Yeah.
just so whether they put that inside a doll that walks around and talks, that's $50,000. I'm not going to buy that. But anyway, the thing online, I tried and I stuck with it for a while. I got one of them to give me a promotion thing to try, and unfortunately, I'm going to probably have to give it a thumbs down because it did nothing for me. So
Well, come join us at MVP
I
and
will.
help us build this community because that's what it's going to become. I've got a group chat set up. I mean, I've got all the bells and whistles. You can message each other.
Okay.
You can report idiots.
I will jump on that myself. Next week I'm off. I'm having a procedure done, so I'll be out for a week. But that'll give me time to catch up on some of this,
Yeah.
and I will definitely join. Gaylen, I can't thank you enough for joining us tonight. It was more than enlightening and more than I bargained for. Fantastic information,
Well, thank you.
and what an incredible story. And wow, you've got a 38-year-old heart in you, and
Well, it's 46 now.
now it's 46, but
I got the flex. I'm 69 and I have a
what
46-year-old
I
heart.
would give for that, I would take whatever. You get the idea.
Yeah.
Gaylen, have a great night. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you so much, Andrew.